Welcome to Leadership Devotionals. You know, our Jesus on Leadership series is now on its 10th installment, and this is quite lengthy. Jesus has left us with so many principles of leadership that we are now on the 10th installment, and this time we will be tackling on another subtopic. We have talked about missions, we have talked about servant leadership, we have talked about relational leadership, we have talked about developing leaders. Now, we will be talking about Jesus leading with integrity. In his seminal work, The Spiritual Formation of Leaders, the author, Chuck Miller, bemoans the shift in focus from character to personality as the dominant virtue required for effective leadership, asserting that the shift is responsible for the prevalence of moral failures in leaders. Today, ladies and gentlemen, today, fellow leaders, there has been a shift. Before, when they were looking for leaders, they were looking at the character of the person. They were looking at the inner being of the person. They were looking at the honesty, the integrity, and the thing that the value that the person is made of. Today, it is a totally different thing. Today, leaders are said to be based on their competence. Yes, it's very important, competent. Today, leaders are based on their personality, on their charisma. Today, leaders are based on their track record, regardless of what happened on the other side. They have increased share values, they have maintained a profit, and all those things. Leaders are chosen out of those parameters. And basically because of that shift, it has resulted to the prevalence of moral failures in leaders. And so Jesus is teaching us here that leaders in the Christian world, in the Christian church, in his institutions, have to lead with integrity. Character is the most important element of Christian leadership. Being ourselves, the inner us, being is foundational. Our inner being is foundational. And being is infinitely more critical than the doing. I repeat it. Being is foundational. Number two, being is infinitely more critical than the doing. History is littered with the human wreckage of leaders whose lack of character both derailed their leadership and also caused so much hurt in others. The leadership of Jesus Christ was grounded in his being, in who he was, in who he is, and who he will be. His leadership is grounded in that. Jesus led with who he was, from what he thus believed and thought, more than from a skill set, as important as those competencies are. In leading with his being, Jesus demonstrated that Christians lead most transformationally when they lead out of their personal relation with God. Oh, this is so beautiful. Again, I repeat it. Jesus demonstrated that Christian leaders lead most transformationally, meaning to say they can effect a transformation on the people that they lead when they lead out from their own personal relationship with God. Meaning, their being is identified with God. They can be the most transformational leaders when their being, when their inner self is identified with God. Rather than, rely on the formulas and slogan derived from leadership manuals and books. For the Christian leaders, of primary importance in your leadership is your personal relationship, is your personal walk, and is your personal engagement with God. Remember that always. Because that personal relationship, that personal walk, that personal engagement with God will result into a transformation of your life. It will result into a change within you. And the transformation will be evident and will be palpable in your leadership, so that people around you will also be transformed because of the transformation that has occurred in you. And when they see that transformation, they too will be inspired, and they too will establish their own personal relationship with God. They too will engage with God. They too will read and study more about God. And that way, you have led them not only with integrity, but you have led them to the source of all moral right. That's so powerful, brothers and sisters and fellow leaders. The relationship that Jesus nurtured and sustained with His Father in heaven led to a life of transparency, a life of authenticity, and a life of humility. I repeat that. The relationship that Jesus nurtured and sustained with His Father has led Him to a life of transparency, a life of authenticity, and a life of humility. Today, we have read of books about authentic leadership. We have heard of authors saying that you start with the why. It's a very, very popular author, Simon Sinek. But in order for that why to be transparent in your life, in order for that why to be communicated to other people, you have to be authentic. You have to be transparent. People can see through your values. People can see through your lives, so much so that when you are faced with a moral dilemma, they will be sure that you will decide for the moral right. That is leading with integrity, and that is leading with authenticity and transparency. Responding to his disciple Thomas, who questioned him about the way he and the other disciples would travel with Jesus, you know what Jesus answered him? This is recorded in John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus responded and said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." The truth. I am the truth. That is integrity. That is honesty. That is transparency. Jesus was at once the incarnation and embodiment of truth. He was the incarnation and embodiment of integrity. His life was a model of integrity for Christian leaders. That's why in this realm, my fellow leaders, there is no better example and model that we can emulate but Jesus Christ. Let me close with this quotation from the book of Ellen G. White when she said, taking into account what's happening today in this present world, and this is so relevant, even though this is already more than 100 years old from the time that it was written. Its relevance for today's corporate, for today's organizational, for today's institutional organizations, and all those other corporations and organizations that needs leadership. This quotation is Very, very important. And I read, the greatest want, the greatest need, okay? The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Now she furthered on to explain what kind of men are this. Men who will not be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who will not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as the needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens fall. Fellow leaders, may you and I be that kind of man. God bless you. Hello, fellow leaders. If you have been blessed with the devotional that you have just heard, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. Because when you do that, more people, more leaders will be blessed with the same blessing that you have experienced. In YouTube channel, click subscribe to Good Shepherd Consultants. God bless you.